Hey all, new day, new verses as we continue on into Matthew 13. Today we are doing the parable of the mustard seed, which is verses 31 and 32. Here we go. Here's another illustration Jesus used. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed planted in the field. It is the smallest of all seeds, but it becomes the largest of garden plants. It grows into a tree, and birds come and make nests in its branches. There are three things that stuck out to me with this verse. One about the size of the seed versus the size of the tree. Because, gardening, I've seen some smaller plants, or some smaller seeds. But generally, they're not garden seeds, and they definitely weren't in the Middle East. But I think the illusion isn't about necessarily the size of the seed. It's the difference in size between the 1 to 2 millimeter size and the fact that a fully grown mustard tree can reach over 20 feet in height. So you're going from basically 0.06 inches to 3,000 to 6,000 times the size. And it made me think about the fact that God, Jesus gives us an understanding of this back in verse 23. The seed that fell on the good soil represents those who hear and understand the word of God and produce a harvest 30, 60, or even 100 times as much as was planted. Well, the little seed is what was planted, and you get something that's thousands of times bigger. It shows that God can do a great deal when we let Him be the gardener. It also made me think about the fact that, the birds come to nest in its branches. I really enjoy the book of Daniel. And it's very clear that Jesus does too, because he refers to himself constantly as the Son of Man. Well, there's another image in there. This branch that reaches, or this tree that grows out and covers this whole area, and birds come and rest in its branches, and animals of the field come and rest under it. And it's this image of authority. Nebuchadnezzar has this dream about him being about this tree, and then it gets knocked down. And it kind of makes me smile a bit, because it gets into the third thing. The Isaiah prophecy about a shoot coming out of the root of Jesse. That David's son will come as the Messiah. Because, Isaiah says that the root of Jesse will shoot up a new shoot, and that new growth will come from it. This new growth in Jesus is authority over all things. And so just in referencing the trees resting in the branches, I see God saying that we have this place of authority He gives us, and when we're living and growing the way we're supposed to, many things will prosper. And when we don't, we get chopped up like firewood. Because that is the continuation of the dream for Nebuchadnezzar in the book of Daniel. He doesn't submit to God. He thinks it's of his own power, and so God knocks the tree down, takes the authority from Nebuchadnezzar, strikes him to be effectively like a dumb animal, and he spends a couple of years running around without his senses, feeding on the grass of the dew. When he finally stops and says, yes, the God of Israel, Yahweh, is King of kings and Lord of lords, the one true God, his kingdom is restored to him, and he truly prospers. And it just kind of makes me smile that even with small illustrations like this, there's a huge amount to unpack and dig into. Because God's giving us the opportunity to see, just in this one area, that when we live under His authority, even if we come from a place of brokenness, scars, destruction, a place where there is very little hope, virtually no joy, and it's just scars and ruin, we have the capacity to rejoice. Not because of the situation, but because God is the gardener greater than the burning damage to the stump. That God will heal us and see us through because He is stronger than the struggle. And it gives us an opportunity to see that when we're growing up and producing under His authority, those who may not have covering otherwise can find shelter. Not because necessarily we're the ones giving it, but more in the idea of trees planted beside still waters, to grow constantly, to always bear fruit no matter the season. It invites to dig into these other illusions about trees and growth and seeing God use abundance and seeing God be the more than enough and the greater than in all forms and in all things. And that gives me hope. It gives me hope that no matter what we come from, as long as we let God do the tending, we'll grow. And we'll grow in such a way that the whole world will see that He is the source of all life. And the imagery of this one tree of life growing, and that as we grow with Him, we become sources of other life, this tree constantly growing grove. The garden being made bigger daily as God shapes and renews us and renews the world wherever He goes ahead of us. We may not see it, we may not experience it in a full understanding, but wherever we put our feet, He's there, claiming that territory when we live in Him, and He in us. And so, places of struggle, of spiritual warfare, become places of victory, even in the middle of the battle, because the battle is His. All of it stemming from the fact that the smallest seed becomes the largest of garden plants. All of it going from, God gave me this, I want to return it, I want it to grow, I want it to prosper. And we see more of that in tomorrow's parable, the parable of the yeast. But that is for tomorrow. For today, think on the fact of where your faith is. Think about where God has you to have you prosper and grow. And realize that, or rather rejoice about the fact that He is working that seed, working that clay, and working that earth, and turning it into fertile soil, which we can grow and prosper in. From the tiniest bit of faith to walking on water. It's all about letting Him be the one to set the tone. I'll see you guys tomorrow as we continue on into 33 through 35 with the parable of the yeast. I'll see you guys then. May His favor be upon you. Know that you are loved, and that even if you're struggling, give it to God. He will be your source of strength, your source of light, and your source of life. Because He is the way, the truth, and the life. I'll see you then.